Jack Spirko here with another TSP video. What we're doing today, we're working on a new project. We're putting in 6 raised beds. I've made them out of 2x8s. And this is approximate position they're going into. You might wonder right there what those cinder blocks are. Well, that's my known orientation bed. So I wanted to do 12 inches between each bed. So as I measured them for what I'm about to show you, I knew that if I made that one sit still, I could count on the other ones. I've moved them a little bit since, so they're not exactly lined up perfectly. And we'll level them before we fill them. But I wanted to show you this project in stages. So right here, there's a trench line I put in. And you can see at each bed turns into the bed. 1/2 inch PVC is going to go in there. And right here is the center point between the two. And this will make more sense when I get the pipe in there dry fitted, which will be the next thing I show you. But we'll come up to here and we'll have a hose bib sitting right here. And we'll have 2 inline valves, one this way and one that way, into 2 zones. And each of the 3 beds on each side is going to have 1/2 inch pipe with a reducer coming off this 3/4 and go in there and have 3 sprinkler heads. One here, this end, one in the center, and one on the end, which will be 9 per zone, which should be no problem with the water pressure we have. They're going to be the sprinklers that they put in for like hedgerows and stuff like that for landscaping. The 2 at the end will be half pattern, which means they'll spray water just like this. The one in the center will be a full pattern, and the other end will be a half pattern, spraying water this way. That's to saturate these beds really well, and it's the closest thing with my hard water I can get to drip irrigation. So what I want to point out is this little trench here with these little 6-inch pieces that go inside, and then they're tapered up because, well, my shadow's there. Where they kind of taper up like this, so that pipe can just lay on the ground there, because of course it'll be covered with cover. This little piece of the trench here, this took me a lot longer than the rest of the trench, which is a hell of a lot longer of a trench. This is where we got deep into the rock. This was just brutal. I thought I'm going to show you the rest of the trench I dug. I thought this to be the easy part. In fact, I'll tell you what, the little 1-foot trench lines going into each bed this way, that was the killer. Coming this way, right here's where I really got into the rock shelf. You see, those all came out of this one spot right here. That goes that way. Anyway, this trench line goes back toward my shop. That spray tank's for compost tea. I really need to show you the compost tea brewer that I brewed. Anyway, I got some plants back here. I've got in kind of a nursery area where they get mostly shade. There's some gooseberry, some hazelnut, some autumn olive, bunch of trees, some pawpaws, dogwoods. Anyway, we decided we wanted some annual production, so that's why we're doing this. So this trench line comes back here, goes here. See a couple roots I was able to dig under, a couple I wasn't. I took a chainsaw to them. And this trench line runs back behind my garden ponds. Buddy the goose and his buddies the ducks have come. And then this water pipe right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this pipe, and I'm going to put an inline shutoff valve here. It'll come up to a T, and this will all make more sense when I show you the dry fit. Come across with another shutoff valve. There's a reason for all this. Go into the ground and follow that trescent line down there and feed those sprinkler systems. Down there I'll have 2 of these inline valves, one for each zone, so I can just turn one on, water one zone, turn it off, turn the other one on, water the other zone. Really, really simple. I may try to put some mechanical timers in at some point to make that easy, but this is where that water's coming from, and that's where it's going. Now you might wonder, why would I bother to put an inline valve right here? Well, here's what's going to happen. If I ever want to take that pond water right there and put it on those beds over there, there'll be a hose bib where it splits off for those 2 zones, one to each side again, one to this side, one to that side. All I have to do is build myself a little jumper hose. You can see right here, this comes off the pump from the pond. So this is the recirculating pump from the pond. I'm going to jumper hose from here into this hose bib here, shut this valve so that it can't push back into my well, open the valve that goes across here, of course it'll probably be open most of the time, and push that water through there, and it'll come out over there. Now I won't put those through the sprinklers because it would clog the sprinklers up, but a simple short hose off the hose bib there, and I can put this water, high nutrient water, right on there. And it will also let me do something else. Worried about freezing pipes. As you can see, I'm not very deep in this trench. We are in the south. We don't have to be down a foot or 2 foot like some of you guys do, or 3 feet like some of you do. We do have worries of freezing pipes in the winter. I don't have to water in the winter during that time though. So what I'll be able to do is pretty cool. I'll be able to go over there and open that hose bib, maybe pull the sprinkler tops off the other ones, come right here, shut the valve off that'll be here. Of course, the valve that goes over and feeds that side will be on. Open up this hose bib, take an air compressor, put it over there, blow those pipes out. So it'll be empty, so there'll be no water in them to burst them during the coldest time of the year. So it'll give us a lot of function stacking. Anyway, if any of this is confusing, it'll make a lot more sense when I put the dry fitted pipes in. And before I hook everything together, I'll show you that, and I'll show you this project as it goes. This is going to be a really cool raised bed project. Say hi, buddy. Say hi, minions. That's Buddy and his minions. This is going to be a really cool raised bed project. Basically, I've taken everything I've learned in all the raised beds I've ever built about difficulties, complications, logistics, solved all the problems. Where do you see this one? Maybe this will make a little more sense now than the last part of this video series, that I've got the actual pipes installed now. So you can see this is the hose bib I was talking about last time. It's been cut, it's been teed off, and this goes through and feeds to the raised beds we just put in. There's a bypass valve here, and this is simply so I can cut off pressure over there if I need to do any maintenance. There's a bypass valve here, and this cuts water off from the supply. And as I said before, now that I've done that, if I close this valve right here like this, leave this valve open, there's now no pressure on here. But I can backfeed through this hose bib off the pump that recirculates water from my ponds, and I can feed pond water through this pipe system. Now again, I probably won't ever push it through the sprinklers because it's likely to clog it, but I can run it over to a hose over there, and that's something I would do maybe once a month just to add fertility. So you can see I've added the pipe, and again, where I could make it work, I went under roots. A couple roots did have to be cut. All the way here, 90s off. And I figured I'd get video of this before I close the ditch in. And then this is the other part that might have been confusing before I actually had something to show you. So now I've got a hose bib here. I've got a feed to the left and a feed to the right. And then there's the main water line coming in. So that way I can feed either both zones at the same time or turn on one zone or the other. These pipes all feed off now to the raised beds. And as I said, I put simple, they call them hedge sprinklers because they're using a lot of hedges for ornamental purposes on each one. So you can see that each bed has a T, and then ends in a 90. So each bed has 3 sprinklers. And these little sprinklers are available in different types of zones. These are halves, meaning, and I'll turn them on in a second, they spray from my hand over only. These are fulls. Full spray, full circle. They also make a quarter, and a quarter, if I come back here, would spray more like this and this. It'd miss the corners, but as well as this will soak, I may in fact end up replacing these with quarters. We'll see after I start playing with adjusting them. I haven't tried to adjust them at all because it's better to just go ahead and finish the project so I can see where the water actually hits. But as you'll see, there's no problem with pressure here feeding all of these, and there's 3 times 6, 18 heads. So I'll go ahead and turn this one on, and you can see on full, I mean, I'm getting wet back here. That's way more pressure than I need. Let me turn the other side on. So now I've got something a little more like it. And I don't want to flood my ditches before I get them full. So I'm going to go ahead and shut these off. And I'm not going to bother adjusting anything until I get everything closed up, dirt filled in, and what have you. But next thing I'm going to be showing you is I'll have probably one filled in at least by the time I show you again. But these bottoms are all going to be covered in cardboard to block weeds from coming up. They'll be cardboard about 2 feet all the way around the perimeter. And then I priced it out as cheap as it is to buy the thinnest, cheapest plywood I can get. I'm probably going to cut 7 strips of plywood. But a 12-inch strip of plywood is a weed blocker between each one. I think you get like the cheapest plywood, you can get like 14 bucks. And that'll last a long time blocking weeds. So they'll go down each one of these rows like that. Cardboard on the outside, wood mulch all around. And again, I'll adjust the sprinklers so that they don't quite clear the edge of the beds. That way water's only going inside the beds. This is as close as I can do to drip. Drip would be ideal, but with my hard water, the drippers clog in a day. So this is much better. The sprinkler heads are 87 cents a piece, so I can store some extras. They start to crap out, I can soak them in vinegar. That doesn't work, I can throw them away and put another 87-cent sprinkler on. I have them all except one that came out a little short, and I figured if it becomes a problem, I'll get it 5 inches above the bed level. And that seems to work out well. So, again, just pulling back to give you a better view of the whole system here. 6 beds spaced 1 foot apart, 30 inches wide each, 1 foot between each row. 2 irrigation zones, weed block, complete control of the whole system. Weed control can be done simply by tarping beds. Frost protection or hail protection, I can build very simple systems to do that. Basically, I've taken every raised bed system I've ever done and I've tried to solve all the problems this time around. Plus add things like fertigation from the pond, being able to push fertigated water out of that hose bib and fertilize these ponds using that nasty fish water to good purposes. Anyway, and by the way, if you look right there, 1,500 gallon water catchment tank, so I can easily block the back feed, take the pressure from that water, and I can actually put water to these gardens from the pressure tank versus the well through the same system if that's what I wanted to do. Anyway, I'll check back with you when I get further along. At this point, I've made a lot of progress. I also skipped something I said I was going to show you. In the bottom of each of these beds is cardboard, and it looks like that, so you didn't really miss anything. But I've got the beds full now, and I'll talk about what I filled them with in just a second. What I wanted to show you is I've got cardboard, 2 layers, all the way around and in between all the beds. That's to help keep the weeds down. Notice I said help, not prevent all weeds and grass from coming, but help keep the weeds and grass down. Because this area obviously is going to get wet. I've done what I can to put most of the water in the beds, but there's going to be moisture here, there's going to be fertility here, so the stuff in between will grow. Like I said before though, it's not really that big a deal. I mean, I thought about putting plywood in between here, and I decided that was just a waste of money and a resource. If that does start to get some grass in it with that nice flat wood surface there, I can run through there with a rechargeable string trimmer and a couple seconds to knock it down. And we'll probably just add a layer of mulch every year to help keep it under control. You can always add another layer of cardboard if you want to. It's cheap, people throw it away, you get it for free. Or you just save your cardboard when you have stuff shipped to the house. So you'll notice it's also wet, and I function stacked. I turned all of the sprinklers pointing out instead of in, turned it on full blast, and soaked everything down. Before the wind blows my stuff away, let me show you everything that's in here. First, the soil mix itself comes from a local supplier called Silver Creek, and they're a great supplier. They make their compost almost entirely out of, well, first of all the carbon really comes from wood chippings from trees, so you know you're not going to deal with herbicides there. And they use manure from their own cattle on site and a lot of other sources, but I've been using their compost a long time. and I've never had any herbicide residue problems. It's a 60% compost and 40% cushion sand mix. And then I started an amendment process. So the first thing on it, and I'll show you these bags, so if you want to try to find the same brand you can, but it doesn't really matter as long as you're getting organic product and the same thing. So green sand, doesn't have to be Texas, but green sand. I've got some over here to show you what green sand looks like. You might be thinking, that's not very green, and it's not. But when you put it on dirt and it's on something black, it has a greenish hue to it. But this comes from ocean deposits, and it's very, very high in minerals, and it also is very good at holding water and improving moisture retention. So I put a half a bag in each bed. They're about 24 square feet. Half a bag's probably enough for twice that much. But there's no way you can damage anything or burn anything with green sand. It's not a fertilizer, it's amendments. Nutrients, minerals, and water retention and soil structure. I also put a bag of mushroom compost, Happy Grow. Again, brand's not important, but 100% organic. So I know I got nothing to worry about there. That gives me another source of compost, so I've got yet another source of fertility, a different source of fertility. Plus it's a mushroom compost, so at least I've got something really friendly to a fungal environment there. Then, one bag of peat humus. These are 40-pound bags, these two. Peat humus, more organic matter, moisture retention. Additionally, somewhat acidic to move the pH that way. And then, one of my favorite organic fertilizers made by a company a lot of people hate. And I don't like everything Scott's does, and Miracle Grow is their brand, but I sure like this product for the price and for what it is. This is an organic bone meal product. Let me say something on this. If you don't like what these people do, buy the stuff they do that you do like. That's how you send them a message. Support the organic market, and maybe these people will turn their marketing and do more of this versus the things that you don't like. Anyway, bone meal is a 690 fertilizer, so that's got a great deal of fertility going in there. And then, real quick, see that bucket right there? That bucket stinks if you open it up and stick your nose in it. That's fermenting comfrey leaves, and there'll be a good about 8-to-1 parts solution of that that will get drenched onto there. Additionally, I have 15 pounds of earthworm, 30 pounds of earthworm castings that should be here today. So 5 pounds each of earthworm castings. These beds are really getting off to a great start. And my view is it's easier to get them off to a great start and then slowly maintain them than to try to slowly build them up. Let's just give them everything they could possibly want going in. So now what I got to do is start. I've got a whole truckload of hardwood mulch, and I'm going to mulch around and in between the beds. I don't want to mulch on top of the beds until those worm castings get here. So as we progress along, I'll keep recording the progress. Everybody say hi, Charlie. Right, so we're pretty much complete at this point. I'm going to show you what I came up to harden these peppers off. These are Detal peppers that are from seed I got a few years ago from Chef Keith Snow. Really the only plants I had around this year, and with as long as our growing season is, they should get up. So they were put in about 2 days ago. Project's really been done for about 2 days since I got around to videoing it for you guys. But as you can see, I've got these 3 beds here mulched with wood chips. Irrigation's good. I've got the whole border. That's one of those irripans you guys hear me talking about on the podcast. I'll talk about those more later in a different video. But all the way around, I've got wood chips suppressing the weeds. Double layer of cardboard underneath there. The towel peppers going. These 2 beds are not planted at all. We're holding off on planting them. They're going to be the first fall crops will go in those. There actually is in the end of each bed butternut squash seed planted. And what I'll do, I'll just train it out that way so they actually don't take any bed space up. That's a way to grow big vining crops if you've got a big empty field like I do anyway, without taking up really any bed space at all. These 3 here, you might want to wonder, why are they straw mulched instead of wood mulched? And that's because as part of the establishment protocol I'm working with here, I am adding to this buckwheat. So this has all been seeded with buckwheat. So I'll have 3 beds of buckwheat. Each bed will support a hive of bees for about 2 to 3 weeks alone. And you see I got 3 beehives sitting there. So that's part of what we're doing here. We're also growing it as a green manure crop to be turned in. And so these beds will be planted a little bit later with, you know, more traditional fall crops. This stuff here, hopefully we'll have plants into. I got to go to West Virginia up to Perma Ethos this coming weekend. Hopefully right after I get back, we'll get some stuff into these beds right here. And then this is going to be mostly peppers. And we'll underplant it with fall crops 2 or 3 weeks before frost. They'll be coming up under the peppers. And as the peppers die off, those fall crops like lettuces and kales and stuff will take over. But there she goes. I did this in about 5 days alone, you know, after shooting the show for a day. So probably 2 days, 2 man-hour worth of days. And I think it's probably the best I've ever done. I've shown you everything on it, including the way the irrigation works. And I'll tell you what, in this heat, you need all the irrigation you can get when you're doing annual crops. And it just sits. You see I've got some chestnuts in the ground, chestnut seedlings there, and there's the first berm, and the main food forest is all out that way. That's my shop. My house is over there, the garden pond, so that kind of gives you an orientation if you've seen other videos of the property where this is. Eastern sun coming up there blinding you right now. Right? And that sun tracks just like this. And these trees back here, you know, your western sun's sitting there about 5:30, 6 o'clock this time of evening. And as soon as it gets back there, that late blasting heat at the hottest time of the day, the gardens go into shade. Anyway, real quick, I want to just, again, always function stack, you know, it doesn't have to be complicated. This is one of the 8-foot hog panels that I use for basically making mobile chicken trackers. I zip tie 5, 6 of them together, depending on how big I want them to be, 4 when they're starting out. And I've got this plastic chicken netting so chicks can't slip through. And that gives probably about 20% shade. So all I did was set up some cinder blocks we had laying around, prop the center so it didn't sag down on top of the irrigation. And then this will just stay here for about, you know, a week till these peppers get hardened off. And the first day, I actually took a big beach towel and completely covered it and just completely put them in a total shade for the first day to let them kind of settle in. These plants have been in pots way longer than they should have been. They're a little bit stunted, but they're in here in some amazing soil. Now you saw the amendments I put in. The one thing I put in that you didn't see was worm castings, 5 pounds in each bed. And then from there we went to planting and mulching. So there you go. Annual gardening has returned to the Spirko homestead. We're still going to focus primarily on forests with nuts and fruits and interplanted annuals, but this will give us plenty of production for 2 people.